Hello, I'm Gavin Hoey and you're watching the Technique of the Month from Digital Photo Magazine. This month I'm going to show you how to turn an ordinary panoramic image like this into your very own little planet using PaintShop Pro. Now the image we've got on screen here is a perfect image for this job because it has two vital ingredients. First of all, it has a reasonably plain foreground and also it has a reasonably plain sky, and there's nothing sticking out the top of the picture area, there's nothing being cropped off. Now to turn this into a little planet, we need to change the shape of the picture. So we need to go away from this kind of landscape shape and into a perfect square. Now we do that by going to Image, choosing Resize, and we need to resize and shape the image. Now first thing we need to do is to untick this little box here where it says Lock Aspect Ratio. So we'll click it, the tick goes away, and we can now start to squash and reshape this picture. Next thing I want to do is to change the pixel dimensions. Now I'm going to change the units from percent to pixels, and you can see my original dimensions here are 6 and a bit thousand by 2000. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop down the width to about 4000 pixels, and I'm going to increase the height to 4000 pixels. So you can see what I've done. I've increased the height, decreased the width. They're now exactly the same. End result, we have an image that's a perfect square. Now this is fine, this is good, but I actually want it the other way up so that the bottom becomes the top. And to do that, we're going to go back to Image and we're going to rotate it to the right. And then we're going to go back to Image again and rotate it to the right once more. So that turns it all the way upside down. Now to make this square into a planet, we're going to go to Effects, choose Distortion Effects, and choose Polar Coordinates, which is something you don't tend to use very often. In fact, it's probably one of the least used filters that I've got. But what it does is to turn square things into circular things, as long as you have the rectangular to polar actually ticked. If you use the other section, polar to rectangular, it goes a bit of a weird shape. So it's the top setting we want to use. The edge mode, we have a choice. We want to use the repeat edge mode. That means it'll take the edges of our picture and repeat the pixels out. It won't be perfect, but it'll help us along a great deal. Just click OK, and hey presto, you now have a little planet. But if you look in really close, you can start to see certain problem areas appearing, like the join down through the middle, to be exact. This isn't actually the middle, this was the two edges of the picture. So you had the right edge and the left edge. Now they've been brought together. You can see, of course, they don't actually line up. They're not the same edge, of course. So we need to do a little bit of work to try and improve this edge area. What we need to do is to try and remove the line. And I'm going to do that by using the clone brush, which is over here, and we're going to get a smaller brush by dropping the size down to about 40 or so. That's pretty good. I'm also going to take the hardness all the way down to 0 as well to give us a very nice soft edge, and I also like to take the density down as well, and this also helps to slow down the effect and give a softer edge to your clone tool, and I find this easier to clone with on areas where we have sort of definite detail, like we've got here. Okay, so how do we use the clone tool? Well, you can hold Shift on the keyboard and click an area that you want to clone, and then you can just paint it in, like so. And away it goes, like that. And we'll just come along the edge here. And it's a good idea to keep changing the area that you select from, so let's go from over here, so you don't have any repeating patterns, and effectively you're creating new water areas like that. And try and just cover those in like so. Okay, so I've filled in the watery area. Let's move up the picture a little bit to something a bit more tricky, like this wall area here. So we're going to do the same thing again. I'm just going to hold the Shift key and select an area that I want to clone, and then I'll clone it over the top, like that. And away we go. Now the idea here isn't to get this absolutely perfect, it's just to try and blend in the joins. Remember, we're looking at a really close-up view. But areas such as trees are an absolute godsend. If you can get a tree on the edge of your picture right at the beginning, then it's much easier to cover the joins, because you can quite simply grow a new tree, pretty much like that. There we go, we'll grow a tree over there, and perhaps we'll extend it up slightly, like that. Let's move our brush along. Now, bricks and regular shaped things need to be carefully cloned, but trees being an organic thing, they're not a fixed shape, so you can simply just grow your own tree, like that. And it could be any shape you like, pretty much. There we are, that covers all the way up to the top of there. That's really nice, a nice bit of covering up. Just this bit of wall to go, so we'll just clone that in carefully, like that. And then we're left with the sky. Now, the sky is a nice smooth tone of colour, so I'm going to put the density back up to 100% again. And I'm going to select a bigger brush. Let's go up to about 100 pixels. It's a little bit on the big side. There we go. And we'll just take an area from the sky over here and just clone it over the join, like that. And perhaps we'll take a bit of the darker sky as well, from over here, and put it back over there. So we're making a new area of sky, and by selecting different points in our picture, let's try and do it without copying extra buildings in. There we go, from that point we can try and blend the sky in. It's worth spending a lot more time than I'm spending here trying to get these to look as good as possible, but we'll just kind of do it a little bit quicker for speed, like that. Okay, so when you're happy, we'll fit that back onto the screen, and our join has disappeared, and our little planet's starting to look really good. Now, there's only one part left that we need to fix, and that's in these four corners here. Because if we have a little look in there, remember we had the repeat pixels when we were applying the polar coordinates. Well, this is what it's done. It's repeated the edge pixels along this cloud and given us this sort of streaky effect. So we're going to cover that up, but we're not going to use the clone tool this time. We're going to use the paintbrush instead. So we're just going to paint onto the sky. But if I'm going to paint now, I'm going to end up with a strange colour, which isn't really what we want. We've got to pick a colour that goes with the sky. And to do that, we're going to use the dropper tool and just click on an area of sky. Let's go with that bit there. And now when I use the paintbrush, and I think we should be using a bigger brush as well. Let's bring it up slightly, that's it. We should paint in just that colour that we chose with the dropper tool. And because our start picture had one of the important things, a nice plain sky, we can quickly paint in all around the four corners, and it should look pretty convincing, like that. Of course, you may find yourself needing to change colour a little bit every now and again. That's fine. Here we go, and we'll go to the last corner. We'll paint in the new sky there, and back to the beginning, like that. Okay, so there we go. We've now painted in the sky, painted in the edges. Let's fit that back onto the screen, and there it is, our very own little world, looking very nice and neat. The final touch for me, though, is to rotate this around, because I've got this big wheel down here in the bottom left corner, but I think it would look better if it was in the top left corner. So we're going to rotate this image. We're going to go back to image, rotate to the right, and that'll just twist our little planet around. And it's worth experimenting with the orientation of your planet, because sometimes they look better one way up or the other. And for me, that looks absolutely perfect.